I'm Hans van Dongen, Washington State University Sleep and Performance Research Center. I am a research professor. My expertise is in mathematical modeling of fatigue, as well as in the effects of sleep loss, individual differences therein, and a host of other things that have to do with sleep and sleep loss and the effects of thereof on fatigue and cognition.
And he's going to give us an update on the sleep study, fatigue study for the Regional Airline Association. So Hans, maybe you could give us an update now about a year later since we last spoke with you about the fatigue study and some of your findings.
Yeah, the last time we spoke we were in phase 1. We were working on the mathematical modeling that we were going to apply to estimate what the workload effects associated with multiple segments, with multiple takeoffs and landings might be, and this was in the context of the NPRM that was just out. We were focusing on Table B, which outlines duty hours as a function of start time and number of segments. And this was the first time that the FAA really considered that element, the number of segments, as a factor in the duty hours. And our challenge was then to figure out if we can get an estimate of what it might be like, the effect of fatigue associated with those multiple segments, and whether or not the FAA had produced the table in the proper way. So we did the mathematical modeling then, that was phase 1, we developed that, and that went into the comments that the RAA provided to the FAA in response to that NPRM, and is currently being considered as the final rule is being produced. But we knew at the time already that since it was a mathematical modeling effort, that we needed to do a validation step also, which means we need to take that mathematical modeling work into an operational environment where we can check whether the numbers that come out of the model really capture the level of fatigue actually experienced in the operational environment. Now that's a big challenge because the operational environment is very fluid, very dynamic, and changes from moment to moment, from day to day. So how do you do a study in the operational setting while still controlling all the factors that you need to control so that you can hone in on solely that question about the multiple segments? And that's been our challenge in phase 2 that we're working on right now. And what we decided to do is we would take the study into the simulators. Simulators, of course, being a realistic environment, yet controllable. Simulators that pilots use to stay current on their licenses and for training, of course. So they are close enough reflection of the real world that we can capture the elements of the real world that we need, yet they allow us to control the study in such a way that we can have pilots fly the same routes with the same circumstances and really just tease apart the elements of the multiple segments relative to only flying one segment a day. And so what we can do then, and what we're planning to do, is to have pilots fly 2 scenarios. One, they will fly a whole day with multiple segments, multiple takeoffs and landings, 5 or 6 segments perhaps. We're in the process of deciding those details. And then we will compare that. The same pilots will fly in the simulators a long whole duty day with only 1 takeoff, 1 landing. And then by comparing their performance and their fatigue levels in the long-haul flights to the multiple segment day, we can then tease apart just the aspect of fatigue associated with the multiple takeoffs and landings. So there's a lot of more I could talk about. I could talk about randomization, talk about the order, balancing the order, talking about the circumstances that we control, which things we will bring in from the real world, about the ATC chatter that we will be playing, and so on, all those details. But there is a steering committee, a scientific steering committee, that has to decide upon the actual details of that of the study in that level of detail. So I would be speaking before my turn to really go into those details right now. But that's where we're at. That's what we're working on.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about why the study has occurred in terms of who is behind it, really. Is it the RAA members that have asked for this? And has there ever been such a study before for the regional airline operations specifically? Yeah,
so this study is entirely driven by the Regional Airline Association and the members that make up the association. It's really unique in the sense of that it is a study driven by industry and the way it's represented, but purely to get the science behind what's being done, and the scale of the study and the magnitude of the questions being asked and how we're approaching it has never been done before in an operational setting like this. That also means it's a challenge where we're pulling something off that nobody's done before. And so for me, it's very exciting to be given the opportunity to do that. And I think for the Regional Airlines Association, they're sort of watching to see if we can pull it off, but I'm confident we can.
Very good. And obviously there is a third phase of and final phase of this study. Can you maybe detail a little bit about what that will entail?
Yeah, so the phase 1 provided us with numbers that we thought would predict fatigue in a multi-segment setting. Phase 2 will validate those numbers, and whatever comes out of the validation will then refine the model so that it will be more precise than it was in phase 1. And that gives us a new tool. It gives us a tool to predict fatigue under different circumstances that regional airlines, or even non-regional airlines, long-haul flights, but particularly regional airlines, could be flying. It will give us a tool to predict fatigue associated with different possible duty schedules. And that means, with such a tool in hand, that we can start to bring this into the operational environment as one additional factor that we focus on when we produce schedules. So that means we can start to produce schedules that are not only getting people from A to B, as of course is the job of the regional airlines to do, but also do so in a safe manner that takes into account fatigue. And that gets us a step beyond what the current regulations provide, and really gets us into the realm of fatigue risk management. Fatigue risk management systems, which are the hot topic these days, but nobody really has a good handle yet on how to implement them. And this will give us a tool to actually do that.